Jack Mitchell stood at the massive viewing window of the transport ship, watching as the Nexus grew larger against the backdrop of stars. The giant space station looked like a gleaming wheel with dozens of spokes, each big enough to dock the largest ships from across the galaxy. After 50 years of humanity knowing they weren't alone in the universe, they finally had a seat at the table. A probationary seat, but a seat nonetheless. "Nervous?" asked Olivia Green, stepping up beside him. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her eyes reflected the distant lights of the station. "Wouldn't you be?" Jack straightened his formal blue uniform. "We're the first humans to serve on the Galactic Council. If we mess this up, Earth might wait another 50 years for another chance." Commander Alan Murphy joined them, his military posture perfect as always. "The Zithrians have been watching our ships since we entered the system. I don't like it. They've opposed our membership from the beginning," Jack said, along with the Moraki. Susan Davis, the youngest of their team, stepped forward. Her job as cultural attaché meant she had spent years studying alien customs. "The Moraki are over 15,000 years old, as a spacefaring civilization. To them, we're infants who learned to walk yesterday and are now demanding to run the marathon." Their transport docked with a slight shudder. Jack took a deep breath. "Remember what we discussed. Be respectful but firm. We've earned our place here." The four humans gathered their belongings and walked toward the airlock. When the doors slid open, they were met by a delegation of 6 different species. At the front stood a tall, slender being with iridescent scales and 4 arms, a Pellerin named Kellex, their assigned guide. "Welcome to the Nexus, representatives of Earth," Kellex said in perfect English. "We hope your journey was comfortable." Jack stepped forward. "On behalf of all humans, we thank you for this opportunity." Kellex led them through wide corridors filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some floated, some crawled, others walked on legs numbering from 2 to 8. The humans tried not to stare, but it was hard. This was the heart of galactic politics, where over 300 species came together to maintain peace. Their quarters were larger than expected, a suite with separate rooms for each team member and a common area for meetings. Through the windows, they could see the curve of a gas giant planet that hosted the massive station in its orbit. "The welcoming ceremony begins in 3 hours," Kellex informed them. "I will return to escort you." After the Pellerin left, Jack called his team together. "First impressions. Did you notice how some of the delegates wouldn't look at us directly?" Susan said, "Particularly the Zithrian representative. In their culture, that's a sign of dismissal." Alan nodded. "Security is tight around our section. Tighter than for the other new species delegates I spotted." "They're watching us," Olivia said, looking out at the stars. "Humanity developed faster than any species they've encountered. We went from radio signals to faster than light travel in just under 2 centuries. That scares them." Jack considered this. "Then we prove we belong here by being exactly what Earth sent us to be. Diplomatic, curious, and helpful. We had a lot to learn, but also things to offer." A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Jack activated the screen to find their schedule and a list of rules longer than his arm. "We've got our work cut out for us," he sighed. Olivia smiled. "Did you expect it to be easy?" "No," Jack said, looking around at his team. "The best Earth had to offer. But nothing important ever is. Let's make humanity proud." As they prepared for the ceremony, none of them could have guessed what they would discover in the coming months, or how their presence would shake the very foundations of galactic society. For now, they were simply the newest members of an ancient institution, unaware that beneath its gleaming surface, the Galactic Council held secrets that would soon change everything. 6 months passed quickly on the Nexus. Jack and his team settled into their roles, attending countless meetings and learning the complex dance of galactic politics. They made a few friends among the more welcoming species, but many council members kept their distance from the humans. Olivia spent most of her time in the vast council data archives, studying the shared technological database that was supposed to benefit all member species. One evening, she called the human team to their private meeting room, her face serious. "Something's wrong with the database," she said, pulling up charts on the wall screen. "Look at the technology sharing patterns over the last 1,000 years." The others gathered around. Jack frowned at the complex display. "What am I looking at?" "Inconsistencies," Olivia said. "When a new species joins the council, they're supposed to gain access to certain levels of technology based on their development stage. But watch what happens in reality." She pressed a button, and the chart shifted. Technologies get held back. Important pieces are missing. It's subtle, but it's there. Alan crossed his arms. "You're saying they're not sharing everything they promised?" "Exactly. And I think it's deliberate." Olivia pulled up another screen. Earth achieved faster than light travel after only 150 years of industrial technology. Most species took 500 to 700 years to reach the same point. Susan leaned forward. "So we're moving too fast for their comfort." "I needed help to confirm this," Olivia continued. "I've been working with a Pellerin data analyst named Thrix. He's young for his species and more open-minded. Together we found something even more disturbing." She showed them a series of documents, translation flowing across the screen. "The Council doesn't just withhold technology. They actively slow down species they think are developing too quickly." A heavy silence fell over the room. Jack finally spoke. "We need absolute proof before we make any accusations." For the next week, they gathered evidence carefully. Fricks provided them with access codes to restricted archives. What they found shocked them. Records of Council interventions on developing worlds, technologies classified as stability risks, and carefully crafted misinformation given to newer members. "It's all about control," Olivia explained as they reviewed the evidence. "The founding species, the Zithrians, Moraki, and 5 others, have been managing galactic development for thousands of years. They decide who gets what knowledge and when." Jack made his decision. "I'm taking this to the High Arbiter. We can't ignore this." The High Arbiter was a Moraki elder named Laura Val, ancient even by her species standards. Her chambers were dimly lit, filled with artifacts from countless worlds. Jack presented their findings respectfully but firmly. The Arbiter listened without interruption. When Jack finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Ambassador Mitchell, you show the typical human trait of rushing toward change without understanding the consequences," she finally said. "The Council has maintained peace for millennia by carefully managing technological progress." "By lying to member species?" Jack asked. "By protecting them from their own ambitions." Her voice hardened. "Civilizations that advance too quickly often destroy themselves or others. We've seen it happen hundreds of times. That should be each species' choice to make." The Arbiter's eyes narrowed. "This matter falls under Council security protocols. I strongly advise you to drop this investigation for the greater stability of galactic civilization." It wasn't a suggestion, it was a warning. Jack returned to the human quarters troubled. He gathered his team and told them about the meeting. "So what do we do now?" Alan asked. "We keep digging," Jack said. "But carefully, very carefully, because I think we've just scratched the surface of what the Council is hiding." None of them noticed the tiny device that had been planted in their meeting room, silently transmitting their conversation to interested parties elsewhere on the station. The next morning, Alan found the first surveillance device hidden in a light fixture in their common room. By midday, he had discovered 3 more. "They're watching everything we do," he told the others when they gathered in the station's public garden. The team had agreed to meet outside their quarters where they could speak more freely. "And I'm certain our communications with Earth are being monitored." Jack nodded, pretending to admire a blue alien flower. "We expected this after my meeting with the Arbiter." "Did you secure our rooms?" "As best I could, but their technology is more advanced than ours." Alan frowned. "We need to be careful what we say, even in private." Meanwhile, Susan had been making connections with representatives from other newer species. She had a talent for building trust across cultural boundaries. That evening, she introduced the team to two of her new contacts in a quiet corner of the station's dining hall. "This is Krill from the Drassy worlds," she said, gesturing to a reptilian being with feathered crests. "And Neni of the Volari." The second alien was small with large eyes and 6 slender arms. Both species had joined the Council within the last century, which made them newcomers by galactic standards. Over dinner, Olivia carefully steered the conversation toward technology sharing. "Has your world received all the advancements you expected when joining the Council?" she asked casually. Krill and Nemi exchanged looks. "There have been delays," Krill said slowly, "always with reasonable explanations." "Very reasonable," Nemi agreed, blinking her large eyes rapidly, "but also very convenient for the founding species." This meeting led to others. Soon, Susan had built a small network of representatives from recently admitted species, all sharing similar concerns about technology suppression. They began exchanging information secretly, using coded messages hidden in cultural exchange files. One morning, Jack received an urgent message from Earth. A human colony on Nova Terra had discovered a new type of energy technology in some ancient ruins. The scientists were excited about its potential. 2 days later, before the news had even officially reached the Nexus, Olivia's monitoring programs detected unusual activity. A Council enforcement vessel had been dispatched to Nova Terra. "This isn't right," Jack told his team. "They shouldn't even know about the discovery yet." A week passed with no news. Then Jack received an anonymous data package. The sender's identity was hidden, but the message was clear: "See what really happens." The package contained security footage from Nova Terra. It showed Council enforcers confiscating all research on the energy technology. More disturbing were the medical logs showing that the scientists had undergone memory adjustment procedures. "They erased their memories of the discovery," Olivia said, her voice shaking. "The Council has been doing this for centuries, finding advanced technology, taking it, and making sure no one remembers." "But why?" Susan asked. "If these technologies could help people." "Because knowledge is power," Alan cut in, "and the founding species want to keep that power for themselves." Jack stared at the footage. "This goes beyond slowing development. This is active suppression on a galactic scale." That night, they received a message from Thrix, their Pellerin ally. "No longer safe to meet. Council Inner Circle aware of your investigation. Watching all communications. Be careful." Jack looked at his team. "We have a choice to make. We can drop this and keep our comfortable position on the Council, or we can do something about it." "What can we possibly do against the entire Council?" Ellen asked. "We can tell the truth," Jack said simply. "We have evidence now. Real evidence of what they're doing, not just to us, but to every species." "They'll try to stop us," Olivia warned. Jack nodded. "Yes, they will." He looked at each team member in turn. "So I'm asking each of you, are you in?" One by one, they nodded. None of them fully understood what this decision would mean for humanity's future in the galaxy, or how the stars themselves would soon shake with the consequences. Over the next 2 weeks, Jack and his team gathered all their evidence. They worked in shifts, always making sure someone was watching for Council security. Olivia and Alan created multiple backups of their findings and hid them throughout the station. Susan's network of allies grew, now including representatives from 15 different species. "We need to make sure everyone hears this at once," Jack said during their final planning session. "If we approach individual delegates, the Council can control the narrative." "What about an emergency assembly?" Olivia suggested. "Any delegation can request one for urgent matters." Jack nodded. "Perfect. I'll make the formal request tomorrow." The Council rarely denied emergency assembly requests, as they were part of the founding charter. Even so, Jack was surprised when his request was approved within hours. The Great Assembly Hall was the heart of the Nexus. Shaped like a massive bowl, it held seats for all 300 member species. The human delegation had seats near the back, reflecting their probationary status. Jack stood at the central speaking platform, looking up at thousands of representatives from across the galaxy. Honored delegates of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice steady. I come before you today with grave concerns about the foundation of our shared community. High above, in a private booth, the 7 members of the inner circle watched with growing unease. For centuries, Jack continued, the Council has claimed to promote cooperation and shared progress among all species. Today, I present evidence that this is not true. A murmur ran through the assembly. Jack activated the main display system, and images began to appear on the enormous screens. Classified documents, surveillance footage from Novaterra, data analysis showing technology suppression patterns. The founding species of this council have systematically held back technological advancement. Jack's voice grew stronger. They have confiscated discoveries, altered memories, and deceived new members, all to maintain their position of power. The chamber erupted in noise. Many delegates were seeing this evidence for the first time. Some shouted questions or denials. Others sat in stunned silence. The Zithrian Grand Delegate stood, his voice cutting through the chaos. These are wild accusations. The human delegation misunderstands our careful protection of developing species. Their evidence is misleading and taken out of context. Jack had expected this. Then why was this evidence classified? Why were memories erased? He looked around the hall. And why have so many of you been told that technologies you requested were still being evaluated for decades? More voices joined the debate. The Pellerin delegation openly supported Jack's claims. Several mid-tier species demanded explanations from the inner circle. Then Olivia activated their secret weapon. With help from Thrix and other allies, they'd bypassed the Council's controlled communication channels and broadcast their evidence to every screen on the station and to member worlds across the galaxy. We all joined this council believing in its stated mission, Jack said, looking directly at the inner circle's booth. But that mission has been betrayed by those who founded it. They speak of unity while ensuring their dominance. The High Arbiter stood now, her ancient face tight with anger. This session is suspended. Security, escort the human delegation to their quarters immediately. But it was too late. The evidence was spreading across thousands of worlds. For the first time in the Council's long history, its absolute authority was being questioned openly by dozens of delegations at once. Council security moved toward Jack, but representatives from Susan's network of allies formed a protective circle around the human delegation. Jack looked up at the High Arbiter. You've controlled the galaxy through secrecy and deception. That ends today. As they were finally escorted from the hall, Jack noticed something significant. Many delegations refused to look at the inner circle representatives. Instead, their eyes followed the humans, filled not with anger but with something more dangerous to the Council's power: hope. The foundations of galactic society had just been cracked, and everyone in that hall knew it. The human delegation was escorted back to their quarters by a full security team. The doors locked behind them with a heavy click. Well, Alan said, breaking the silence, that went about as expected. Jack looked around at his team. Despite everything, they were smiling. Phase 1 complete. Now we wait. They didn't wait long. Within hours, the Nexus was in chaos. Delegations demanded answers. The Council called an emergency executive session, excluding the human delegation and their known allies. Susan's network, however, was larger than the Council suspected. Through hidden communication channels, they learned what was happening in the closed session. The inner circle is divided, Susan reported, reading a message from one of her contacts. 3 of the founding species want to make an example of us by removing Earth from the Council immediately. And the others? Jack asked. They're worried about appearances. They want to place Earth under what they call developmental quarantine instead. Susan looked up grimly. It means the same thing, cutting Earth off from all interstellar contact. Olivia worked frantically at her terminal, coordinating with allies across the station. We need to move faster than expected. They're already preparing enforcement ships. Ellen checked their security systems. They'll come for us soon, probably to detain us while they make their decision official. Jack nodded and looked at his team. Then it's time. Send the message. Olivia's fingers flew across her console. Sending now. Throughout the station and across thousands of worlds, communication systems activated simultaneously. Jack's face appeared on screens everywhere, including in the closed executive session. To all members of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice calm and clear. You've seen the evidence of systematic suppression and control by the founding species. For thousands of years, they have maintained power not through cooperation, but through deception. In the council chamber, the High Arbiter rose in fury, but could not stop the transmission. The human delegation has made a decision, Jack continued. Effective immediately, Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council. Gasps echoed through chambers across the galaxy. We did not reach this decision lightly, but we cannot participate in a system built on lies. Earth joined the Council believing in shared progress and mutual respect. Those principles have been betrayed. Jack paused, then delivered the words that would change the galaxy forever. To any species who share our desire for true cooperation and open exchange, we extend an invitation. Join us in forming a new alliance, one based on equal partnership and shared advancement, one where no species controls the destiny of others. The High Arbiter's voice cut through the transmission in the council chamber. This is outrageous. Security, detain the human delegation immediately. But even as security forces moved toward the human quarters, something unexpected happened. The delegates from 27 species, mostly newer members but including 2 mid-tier civilizations, stood up in the chamber. The Pellerin Confederation withdraws from the council, announced their representative. The Drassy worlds withdraw, said Krill. One by one, delegates made similar declarations, creating unprecedented disorder. In their quarters, the human team watched the chaos unfold through their allies' transmissions. It worked, Olivia whispered. They're actually doing it. A loud bang came from their door. Council security was trying to break through. Time to go, Alan said, activating a hidden panel in the wall. Their escape route, planned weeks ago, was ready. Jack looked around one last time at the quarters that had been their home. Susan, send the second message. As security forces broke through the door, they found the room empty. On every screen throughout the station, a new message appeared. Coordinates for a meeting place beyond council space, and a simple phrase, "For those who choose freedom, we will be waiting." The human delegation had vanished, but their words echoed throughout the galaxy, and for the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council's absolute authority began to crumble. 2 weeks after their escape from the Nexus, Jack stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, Earth's newest ship. Captain Paul Rivera had answered humanity's call for help without hesitation, arriving at the secret coordinates within days. Another 3 ships just arrived, Paul reported, looking at his screens. That makes 19 species who have joined us so far. Jack nodded, watching through the view screen as the vessels gathered. They varied in size and design, reflecting the diversity of the species who had chosen to leave the Council. Any sign of Council enforcement ships? Jack asked. Nothing yet, Paul replied, but they'll find us eventually. The ship's communication officer called out, "Incoming message from the Pellerin vessel." Frix's face appeared on the screen. His usual Pellerin calm was replaced with excitement. "Ambassador Mitchell, we've received word from 8 more species. They're preparing to break from the Council, but they're concerned about protection. We're stretched thin as it is," Paul said quietly to Jack. Jack understood the problem. Earth's fleet was small compared to the Council's vast forces. Even with their allies, they couldn't defend everyone who wanted to join them. "What's the status of Dr. Green's project?" Jack asked. "She's ready," Paul answered. "But it's risky. The Council will see it as a direct challenge." "Everything we've done is a direct challenge," Jack reminded him. "Let's proceed." Aboard a Drassy ship nearby, Olivia worked with a team of scientists from 7 different species. For days, they had been combining their knowledge, freed from Council restrictions for the first time. "The network is ready," Olivia told Jack over a secure channel. "We've placed communication relays at these coordinates." A map appeared, showing dozens of points across several sectors of space. "What makes these different from Council channels?" Jack asked. "Everything," Olivia said with a smile. "They can't monitor or control these, and they use technology the Council has suppressed for centuries. Once activated, they'll allow instant communication between all our allies." Jack gave the order. "Activate the network." Across the gathering fleet, systems came online. Ships that had never been able to communicate directly now exchanged information freely. The free flow of knowledge had begun. Meanwhile, the Council was not idle. A fleet of enforcement vessels had been dispatched to bring the rebellious elements back into line. Their first target was the Pellerin homeworld, where public support for the human stance was strongest. The Council fleet arrived, expecting little resistance. Instead, they found 5 Earth ships, including the Defiant, in defensive positions. "Council vessels are charging weapons," Paul reported. "Hold position," Jack ordered. "Let them make the first move." On the Council flagship, the commander was receiving strange reports. His targeting systems were showing errors. Communication between his ships was becoming unreliable. "What's happening?" he demanded. His officers had no answer. Unknown to them, the years of technological suppression had left them vulnerable. The combined knowledge of the Rebel Alliance, as they were now calling themselves, had produced countermeasures the Council had never anticipated. When the Council ships fired, their weapons performed at half capacity. When they tried to coordinate their attack, communications failed. "They can't fight what they don't understand," Olivia explained to Jack later, as reports of the Council's retreat came in. "And they've spent centuries making sure no one understood too much." Over the next days, similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Council enforcement attempts were met with unexpected resistance and mysterious technical failures. Word spread quickly through the new communication network. 1 month after the human delegation left the Nexus, a new alliance was taking shape. They called it the Terran Accord, named for the species that had sparked the revolution. 27 species had officially joined, with more indicating their interest. Jack looked at the star map showing their growing territory. "This is just the beginning," he told his team. "The Council still has enormous power. But they've lost something more important." Susan said, "They've lost their myth of invincibility." For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy was changing, and the tremors were only growing stronger. 2 years passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. The Terran Accord had grown to include 43 species who shared technology and resources openly. What started as a rebellion had become a thriving alliance that stretched across a significant portion of the galaxy. Jack Mitchell, now with gray in his hair, stood at the window of the New Beginning space station. The planet below had been uninhabited before becoming the headquarters of the Accord. Now it bustled with activity as representatives from dozens of worlds worked together. "Director Mitchell," Olivia called, entering his office. "They're ready for you." Jack smiled at his old friend. Dr. Green now led the Accord's Science Council, overseeing research that combined knowledge from all member species. The results had been remarkable. "How many ships arrived?" he asked. 7, Olivia replied, "including the Moraki diplomatic vessel." Jack raised his eyebrows. So they finally decided to talk. In the main conference room, representatives from all the Accord species gathered. At the center table sat a delegation from the Galactic Council, the first official contact in 2 years. The Pellerin led the council group, but representatives from the Moraki and even the Zithrians were present. Jack took his place at the head of the table. "Welcome to New Beginning," he said. We appreciate your willingness to meet. The Pellerin delegate, an elder named Kelix, the same guide who had first welcomed humans to the Nexus, spoke first. The Council recognizes the Terran Accord as an independent association of sovereign species. A murmur ran through the room. This was the formal recognition they had been waiting for. Recent events have caused reconsideration within the Council, Kelix continued. The founding species have agreed to reforms. What kind of reforms? Jack asked carefully. The technology suppression protocols have been suspended, the Moraki representative said, clearly uncomfortable with the words. And a review of all Council policies is underway. Jack exchanged glances with Olivia and Susan, who sat nearby. This was more than they had expected. What brought about this change? Susan asked. The delegates shifted uneasily before the Zithrian answered. The Council is facing challenges. Several more species have indicated their intention to join your accord. And there have been technical difficulties. Jack understood. The Council's long policy of suppressing innovation had backfired. They couldn't keep up with the rapid advancement happening within the Accord. We propose a treaty, Kelix said. Recognition of boundaries, non-interference, and limited technology exchange. Discussion continued for hours. When they broke for the day, Jack walked with his original team through the station's main concourse. Around them, humans worked alongside beings from dozens of worlds. They're afraid, Alan observed. The Council has never had to negotiate as equals before. Susan nodded. Some of their member worlds are demanding reforms. They're facing pressure from within and without. Do you think they're sincere? Jack asked Olivia. She considered the question. I think they have no choice. The galaxy is changing too fast for them to control anymore. That evening, Jack stood alone at the great observation window. Below, the lights of the first city on New Beginning twinkled as night fell. Ships from across the galaxy moved in and out of orbit, freely exchanging goods and ideas. He thought back to that first day on the Nexus, when humanity had been the newest, most junior member of an ancient institution. Now, they had triggered a transformation that was still spreading across the stars. A small Volari child approached the window beside him, looking out with wonder at the same view. Are you the human who changed everything? The child asked in her musical voice. Jack smiled. No, little one. Humanity didn't change the galaxy. We just reminded everyone that freedom is worth fighting for, and that we're stronger when we truly work together. As stars glimmered in the darkness beyond the window, Jack knew the transformation was just beginning. The old council might adapt or it might fade away, but the galaxy would never return to what it had been before. The stars had indeed shaken, and a new age had begun.